because there's a loving God as he expresses himself in our relationships. You know what I mean? The only requirement is to stay in the relationship. Autonomy is the opposite of codependency. If you look at the traditions, they basically have 4 relationships. The group's relationship to the alcoholic who still suffers, the group's relationship to God as he expresses himself in our group conscience, the group's relationship to other groups in the 4th tradition, and the group's relationship to the world. If you really look at it, those are the 4 relationships that come out of the traditions. There's 12 principles, which are the traditions that govern the unity. Okay? Service is governed by the world concepts, which is, you have to be an attorney to talk about the world concepts. It's basically how Alcoholics Anonymous relates to the world through public service and through service. And it gives us a bunch of ideas of how that works. And then the mind, or the recovery of the mind, is governed by the 12 steps. That's what we're going to talk about. I can't help you guys with the other 2. You have to go to meetings and you have to get commitments. If you don't do that part, this shit isn't going to work. It just won't work. Then this just becomes a therapeutic process. It's not working on myself, it's being rid of myself. My sponsor said to me, the work in AA is not working on yourself. And he also said, if you're not willing to take other people through the steps, you're going to die. Yeah. So the point of this idea, well, no, he was very clear about it. He was very clear because he said, you've been in the fellowship getting loaded for 17 years. Mm-hmm. We already know. You know, I'm smoking crack out of the stem on the coffee pot. And I'm making coffee, and all week I'm smoking crack out of the stem, and then I'm making coffee, and I can't get sober.
Oh, the little stem, right?
Yeah. Wow. So I know that commitments alone wouldn't do it for me. I had to have something, a deep and effective spiritual experience. So you guys are responsible for those 2 sides. Go to meetings regularly, get commitments at meetings, and this basic group, I can help you guys with the steps. Out of everyone here, maybe 4 of you guys will make it to a 5th step. But when we get to that point, we'll break off and meet individually. I'm not an expert at this. I'm just one guy that was taught how to do it, and I've been doing this basically to save myself. It's selfish. But at the same time, the idea with this is you spend so much time in group and in therapy and in meetings. Wouldn't it be great to really learn this part of it? To really learn the educational portion of this. When you guys didn't come in, the book, again, is divided into promises, prayers, directions, and warnings. If you take a highlighter, you can go through the book and you can really divide the book into that. You're going to see it in 10, 11, and 12. You're going to see it in Bill's story. You're not going to see it so much in the doctor's opinion because he's an outside entity, but he's the one that brought the physical component to Dr. Bob through Bill, where once we start, we can't stop. So what I want to do when we go through this, and I think it's a good way to learn this, is to go through some of these questions. First of all, you guys saw the table of contents. So you understand when you go through this, Bill's story is the craving, there is a solution is the obsession, more about alcoholism is the unmanageability. The book is basically divided into those ideas, so that if you really look at the way the book is laid out, you'll see that it goes like this. It goes craving to 23, mental obsession 23 to 43, and then the spiritual maladjustment goes all the way up into the 50s. So the first third of the big book is based on the first and second half of step 1, which is I can't process alcohol, second half that I can't process reality. Those are 2 independent concepts in the first step. The allergy drives me, really the spiritual malady drives me into the obsession drives me into the allergy kills me. So it's like I can't live with it, and then you guys will start to see as you go through this, if you're truly alcoholic, most likely you're not going to be able to live without alcohol successfully unless you adopt a whole new set of ideas in your life. And Carl Jung says it. He says, ideas, attitudes, and emotions that are once the guiding force are suddenly cast to one side, and a whole new set of conceptions begins to dominate. So this is the fundamental idea of AA. That is probably one of the best descriptions of the spiritual awakening. Ideas, attitudes, and emotions that are once the guiding force are suddenly cast to one side, and a whole new set of conceptions begins to dominate. In the spiritual experience in the back of the book, when we get to it, it talks about how long it takes. It says what seldom can be accomplished by years of self-discipline often occurs in a few short months. So people will tell you can work the steps all in one day, but to really learn how to apply 10, 11, and 12, and to utilize these ideas in your life to grow, it'll take a little while. It'll take a little while. So what I want to do, I don't know if you guys, hopefully you all have a book. This was something that came out of, I think it's the Uncommon Sense of Alcohol. Roy gave me this. The 4 things that block me from God. Have you heard this, Roy? Someone I will not forgive, a restitution I will not make, a secret I will not confess, a dubious pleasure I will not forego. Those are the 4 things that block me. Deep, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting. So we do a set-aside prayer. God, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, about AA, about myself, so I can have a new experience. If you guys can just kind of like meditate on that for 30 seconds. You know, like I said, I'm not an expert at this. Do you want to photograph that?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I think we do.
Okay. So, as you notice, the table of contents in the book, when you go through, I'm using a 3rd edition, but it's the same basically, except for the forwards are pushed forward a little bit. I would take that you photographed and I would write that into your book. Okay? Now, the reason we're doing this is when you've got this book and you meet that new guy an hour before the meeting, because that's what you're going to do. The point of this exercise is so when you meet a new guy, you're going to know what you're talking about. You're going to be able to show them this stuff in the table of contents. You can draw that circle into your book. Remember the circle we were just talking about that you all took a picture of? Great, you've already got it, right? I mean, you've done this before. Okay, so you'll look at that. That's something that, you know, is interesting to him. On the first preface, it says that because this book has become the basic text for our society, okay, so I underline basic text. So you guys understand it's not a workbook, it's not a novel. You might want to highlight basic text if you haven't done it already. The second page of the preface right here, it asks you some questions. It says, yes, this has happened to me. Yes, I felt like that. Do I believe this program can work for me? Okay? So think about this. When we go through Bill's story, because I know you're recording this, these are the 3 or 4 questions you're going to ask as you go through this book. Did I drink like Bill? Did I think like Bill? Did I feel like Bill? Not whether or not you played golf, not whether or not you're a stockbroker, not whether or not you were a World War I, you know, veteran, but did you drink like this guy?
Or you.
When you started, could you not stop on your own? How many times did you swear you were going to stop for your girlfriend, for your job, for your family? And how many times did you fail? Right? Did you think like him? Did you think that when you got self-knowledge that you knew all this stuff that we're going to learn here, that should be enough? But see, it doesn't say keep coming back, it works if you know it, right? This knowledge is great for you to help someone else. It will empower you with facts that will bring a new guy across that bridge, right? Because he knows that you know, because you drank like him, like you felt like him. But in and of itself, it's not enough. That's why none of the sides of the triangle alone are enough. It has to be a unilateral triangle. There's groups that do all kinds of service, all kinds of unity, but they never talk about the steps. I couldn't survive there. Then we got our home group. They know more about AA than God, but there's no new guys. Okay? Because they don't take it out into their community. The idea is to sit in the middle of this triangle. Recovery, unity, and service. All it means is to contribute, belong, and learn. If you can do that every day, contribute a little bit of your life, make sure you feel connected to people, and to continue to grow and learn. What a way to live. So the steps bring me wisdom, the fellowship where 2 or more are gathered bring me power, and service brings me love. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the product of that triangle is wisdom and power and love. Who wouldn't want wisdom, power, and love? Right? That's out of the keys to the kingdom, by the way. If you read that book, that chapter in the book, at the very end of that, he said, in exchange for a bottle and a hangover, I found a way to be wanted, needed, and loved. And that really is the hook in AA. That you've got to have a message that's grounded in depth and weight, that has something that's going to hold the attention of an alcoholic, right? If you take the meth pipe away from me and the drink away from me and the bag away from me, you got to give me something better. If you don't give me something better, there's no way I'm going to stay here. So what is it as a human being that's going to sustain me? Because we know sex ain't going to sustain me. It's good for, what, 30 minutes? A new car, a relationship for maybe 90 days, a new car maybe 60 days, right? There's nothing on the outside. You cannot solve a spiritual problem with a physical solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you continue to go through that. Now listen to this. On the forward of the first edition, it says to show others precisely how we have recovered. Now, if you're a contractor, right, and we use the word precisely, there's not a lot of latitude for opinion in the word precisely, right? So you'll hear people say, my sponsor said, there's many ways to work an AA program. There are people in it. And he goes, well, why is there a 95% failure rate? You don't want to be doing what 95% of the people are doing. In the olden days, when this first started, like I said, they had a different approach. They got right into this. They found out what bothered them. They got it down on paper. And when we get into Bill's story next week, Bill's story really covers that really clearly. If you look at the second half of Bill's story, like page 13, 14, he goes through all the steps right away. And he says, I was to test my thinking. And he really, really clearly outlines the 12 steps in Bill's story. And then he does it again as he goes through the book. But it's really important to see that basic framework of what it means to enlarge and perfect our spiritual life. Does that make sense at all? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you want to maybe you want to highlight that to show others precisely how we have it covered. That's a promise. Isn't that a promise? It's a promise. Okay. It also talks about our way of living. You might want to highlight that. It's on that first paragraph. Okay. I don't know what you guys got, but on the forward to the second edition, at the top of the second page, it says, it also indicated that strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery. That's a really important statement right there. You probably already got it, right? No, that's not it. It might be the next page, but see if you can find it.
It also indicated the strenuous work?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at the page before that, because Todd asked, it says, accepted all the tenets of the Oxford group, which are inventory, confession of personality defects, restitution to those harmed, helpfulness to others, the necessity and belief and dependence upon God. It's kind of backwards right there, but those are the basic ideas of the Oxford group, okay? If you look at the steps, this is the way they are. Surrender, catharsis, restitution, service. 1 through 3 is God, 4 through 7 is self, 8 and 9 is others. 10 is self, 11 is God, 12 is others. If you really look at it, it's a very, very simple thing. So in 1 through 3, I give it up. 4 through 7, I clean it up. 8, 9, I make it up. 10, 11, and 12, I keep it up. So think about that. 1 through 3, I give it up. That's surrender, right? 4 through 7, I clean it up. That's catharsis. 8 and 9, I make it up. That's restitution, right? 10, 11, and 12, I keep it up. That's the maintenance and growth of a spiritual condition. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
It's a real simple idea. These things don't have to be that complicated. I know I'm a fast talker, but I'm trying to get through this so you guys, can get the fundamental ideas. We haven't even got 3 pages into the book.
Right.
But I want to get you through this in 8 weeks. So if you want to do it, we'll do it in 8 weeks. And then, you guys can take these parts that I've highlighted or we've highlighted and hopefully start practicing on people. Just like an experiment. Find a guy, read him the book, buy him a beer, take him to a meeting, whatever. Just see how it works out. And I'm telling you, we got it made today because we get so many meetings. Stacy and I used to do multi-level marketing. A lot of us know what multi-level marketing is, right? You find a prospect, you bring them to a business meeting. Hopefully there's a great speaker and you fucking sell them something, right? AA is the same business model. You find a drug, you bring them to a meeting. Hopefully it's a great speaker, give them a big book. It's the same business model because Bill Wilson was a salesman. But here there's no consideration. We don't want your money. All we care about is that you have an amazing life and you get free from this. That's all we really care about. But most people, like that refrigerator in there, if you unplug it, everything goes bad. Most people won't stay plugged in. Right? Like I said, Bill's story, by the time you get to more about alcoholism, they got a relationship, they got a girlfriend, their life's going really good, and what happens? They stop doing these ideas. Like in the Buddhist community, they say, chop wood, carry water. I'm like, what does that mean? And it means if you live in the wilderness, if you don't chop wood every day, you're going to freeze to death at night. It goes down to 0 degrees. You need wood at your cabin, right? If you don't bring water up from the river every night, your girl can't cook. You starve to death. AA's the same thing. This triangle, recovery, unity, and service, is the thing that will give you spiritual nutrition. That's what it means to be a human being. Contribute, belong, and learn. This applies to everyone in the human race, not just us, but for us it is imperative. For us it is vital. Our lives depend on it. And if we do these core things, all of a sudden we start to recover from alcoholism. Does that make sense a little bit?
Myself and others.
Okay. Yeah, I know. But for some reason we have to be taught. I'm a selfish, self-centered person. I was brought up like that. You know what I mean? Where's mine? I don't need, you know what I mean?
What am I getting out of it?
Exactly. That's why they say integrity is actually trying to be nice to someone that can't do anything for you. I don't understand that. I've always, my mom, we were talking about, I'm the first guy to help the old lady across the street, but if I'm on crack, I'm going to steal her purse, right? But my heart's in the right place. My heart wants to be helpful. Let that part of your heart work in AA. When you guys are finished with this work, you'll know more about AA than 99 out of 100 people in the rooms. Okay? And then when people ask you, you'll know what you're talking about. You know, and there's always going to be people in the rooms that just live on the fellowship alone and they never have to do any of this work. God bless them. There's room for all those people in AA, but that guy can't drink me. Because he'll tell me, just don't drink and go to meetings. And I'm chasing people 4 exits past my exit on the freeway. I'm jumping up and down on some guy's hood in traffic. I'm out of my mind when I'm not drinking. And I have to have this vital spiritual experience. So for me, it's a life or death errand that I go through this book. But there's a lot of guys in AA that don't. They just have the physical allergy to alcohol. In other words, once they start, they can't stop. And he can ruin a marriage. He can ruin a career in one night. But when he stops, his life kind of rights itself. He wakes up, it's a brand new day. I wake up and I think about my 3rd grade teacher. I fucking hated her. You know what I mean? So I'm attached to these events from my past. I have a spiritual attachment. Does that make sense, kind of? So that's what I have to be rid of. I have to be rid of that, and that is the main purpose of this book, to find a power that will enable me to be rid of that self-centered fear, that bondage, that resentment, and that dishonesty that drives me. And if I can be rid of that, I'm free. I become empowered. In fact, most of us become the strongest members of our community because we're the most spiritually hungry. That's why alcohol has such a big hook on us. That's why unconditional love and honor and respect and loyalty are so big with us. Because those are God qualities. Those are God qualities.
Let me ask you a question, Adam. A lot of times people in AA think that they only have the malady, and you don't understand alcohol is different than drugs.
No.
But there's people that believe this, that it's alcoholism is just strictly the malady for alcoholism.
Okay.
You guys don't get it in fucking...
Are you going to stick with principles before personalities? Are you going to let people like that
Oh,
drive
no,
you
no,
out?
I'm
I
not
know,
saying,
but...
I'm just saying, you know, it's been said more than once.
Right, I know,
So
but you're going to have to ignore it.
what is your rebuttal to that? To a heroin addict, oh, you're not alcoholic, it's a different thing. It's addiction.
We have singleness of purpose for a reason. Let's
Yeah.
go back for 1 second. The reason we have singleness of purpose in AA is because when a guy's talking about shooting, heroin in his neck and all that stuff, it's like, I mean, it's powerful, right?
Right.
But when a new guy comes in and he's just an alcoholic, and he hears that, he'll fucking turn around and walk out. And that's the only reason. It's not because because Bill Wilson actually patented Addicts Anonymous. I don't know if you know that. Bill Wilson, if they were selling crack on Bill Wilson's corner, we'd have been smoking, dude. You know Bill would have took a hit. Come on. So it's like, this is just a change in the guard. The times have changed. But for the purpose of singleness of purpose, we try to respect AA. It's not, no, dude, you know what you are. Why do you have to prove it to anyone else?
I just don't like to hear it.
I drank, I don't want to drink no more. That's the end of our conversation.
I hate to hear
Okay?
it.
I drank, I don't want to drink anymore. And talk about, okay, there's 2 talks in AA. We can talk about what got us here, right? But a lot of us want to talk about what keeps us here. And that's where your wisdom's going to shine, bro. When you talk about what keeps you here, see, those guys are like, they're the guys that like try to make you drink, or what did you drink, or what kind of dope. It's like, what, see how lame that is? It's like, when you start talking about the fundamental ideas that keep you here, singleness of purpose, being of service, helping new guys, doing H&I. He does a lot of H&I. Then you're going to shine. Why worry about that? But remember why we do it. We do it to protect the new guy that walks in that room. That's why we have singleness of purpose. Does that make sense at all?
The same way if you walk into Cocaine Anonymous.
They're all inclusive.
Yeah. You talk about alcohol, the cocaine addicts like, I'm not fucking talking about alcohol, I'm a crackhead. Or whatever.
But they're all new guys. They don't.
It's all, I know. I get it.
When you start to stay here for a while, you want to start hearing about recovery.
Right.
Haven't
It's
you
not about
noticed?
the substance.
Yeah.
cracks in the big book, man. It's just this combination of high-powered sedatives, and gin soon landed me on the rocks in 1939. I knew about rocks.
Okay,
Rocks, literally rocks, yeah,
This
right.
is landed me on the rocks. It's a guy shot for me.
Rocks. All right.
That's a new interpretation.
That's the first I've heard that.
I knew I'd get something out of this.
Yeah. On the last forward, I don't know, I think it's the forward to the 3rd edition, but I'm just going to read it. I know you guys aren't going to find it. It says, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once. Okay? That's in the, let me just tell you where it is. 'Cause yeah, but it's
22 in Roman numeral.
just look at forward to the 2nd edition. It's the end of forward to the 2nd edition. 25% sobered up after some relapse. Among those who remained, they showed improvement. Okay? So this article right here, I'll try to forward it to you guys. If you guys email me, I'll give everyone a card and I'll send you some of this stuff. It explains what happened. It explains what happened to those success rates and how the therapeutic community and the judicial system and everything else kind of skewed those statistics, okay? I'll give everyone my business card with an email when we leave, and then I will forward you some of the stuff, because there's some really great people that show you how all this was put together that are AA historians. He knows one named Roy, but there's a couple of them. I have a couple of friends that are really into it, and you know, whatever. Maybe it doesn't matter, but if you're a really alcoholic, I got bad news for you. It's like being a diabetic. You're not going to grow a new pancreas. If you really think this is a temporary problem, you're screwed. You get a rude awakening. If you got what I got, you got 2 choices here: go on to the bitter end or accept spiritual help. That's it. If you can find another way, come back. I live here. Been here years. Let me know. Let me know if there's another way.
I found Jesus.
That's fine.
No, I'm just-
A thing about religion is you can, because it says in the end of the 6th chapter, it says we see where religious people are right. Never substitute religion for AA. Do it in addition to AA. So if you go to church, or you go to temple, or you go to, you know what I mean, anything like that, that's all great. It's great, but do it in addition to recovery. Don't do it as a substitution for recovery. Okay? Because most of this stuff in here comes from that. Unfortunately, all this stuff comes from early, like, theological ideas. Again, surrender, catharsis, restitution, and the highest thing in all religions is service. All of them. Every single one. Every single religion always ends with service. AA, we kind of start with it. Isn't that cool? We kind of start with it. Surrender, catharsis, restitution, and service. So, a little bit about Dr. Silkworth. Dr. Silkworth, as we go through this, was the chief physician at one of the most prominent hospitals at that time treating alcoholism in New York. And Bill Wilson, coming out of his 3rd treatment center, got this idea that maybe if he went back and talked to some of the patients, he would, recover. He had this idea. And he calls Dr. Silkworth and he says, I got this idea. I want to come talk to the patients. And Dr. Silkworth's like, you want to do what? Mm-hmm. It was like a foreign idea to Silkworth. But what happened is from 1935 to 1939, what Dr. Silkworth saw was absolutely amazing. Dr. Silkworth had worked a long time in this career, in this field, and had very little results. And what he saw with Bill Wilson working with other drunks, he said was absolutely profound. He was so amazed by it that he actually endorsed this book.
Letter of reference.
He endorsed the book. Yeah. But as we go through this, because we're going to go through it pretty quick, he also foreshadowed that this would become a huge, huge fellowship. He could see that it was going to grow. So we're going to go through it, and we're going to go through the whole thing today, and then we're going to try to do all of Bill's story next week, and we're going to see if we can hit a chapter a week. We might have to split a couple of them up, but you know what I mean? Like I said, you can record it, you can take notes, you can read, you can do the homework and read this before you come. These are the basic questions as we go through the doctor's opinion. You might want to ask these questions of yourself. Let's take Todd as an example, okay? Is Todd regarded as hopeless, wants to quit but can't? Yes or no? Is Todd the type with whom every method he had tried failed completely? Yes or no? Right? As you go through these questions, are you willing to believe this book has a remedy for you? Are you willing to believe that and rely on anything they say about themselves? Okay? Do I get high or drink because I like the effect produced? It's yes or no. Does this effect become so elusive that while I admit it's injurious or hurting me, I cannot differentiate the true from the false? It's yes or no. You just have to ask these questions, because as we go through
The questions are in that book?
yeah, they're also in here. This comes right out of here.
Oh, wow. No, I know, I'm just...
Yeah,
can-
all
you
the
can
questions,
buy-
all we've done is we've extracted the dope out of here and put it in this spoon right here.
But by the way, you can buy that book. You can buy that book at Bundy and Santa Monica.
Yeah, they got it over there.
12-step
I got
store.
the book.
The workbook?
I'm like,
Yeah.
where did you read? Where are you reading this shit? I don't see
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna. I'm asking you these questions
so-
now,
no,
so when we go
Yeah.
through the
There's a
chapter,
7-Eleven,
you're gonna
a
hear the
Starbucks
questions.
there, just
Okay.
around the corner on
Concentrated
Santa
the dope.
Monica.
I got it.
Really?
It's called the 12 steps.
Okay, is this repeated over and over again? Okay, the doctor's opinion has something that's called the gold standard in the treatment industry. It's called the cycle of addiction. And what the cycle of addiction is drink, craving, spree, emerging remorseful, swearing off forever, repeating the cycle. That's the cycle of addiction. The idea with this is I'm restless, irritable, and discontent by nature. It means I have a restless spirit. I am naturally irritable, which means I'm quick to anger, I'm slow to forgive. I keep score in every relationship that I'm in. And that I have this discontentment, which means the shine wears off everything right away. This is my basic nature. And that's what drives me back into the first drink. Okay? So that's a description of the spiritual malady. The drink creates the craving, and the craving kills me. Because I can't stop once I start. So drink, craving, spree, emerging remorseful, swearing off forever, repeating the cycle. But the underpinning of this phenomenon is that I have an unbearable, restless, irritable spirit that's insatiable. What's crazy is it's insatiable. You know what I mean? I could have the hottest chick in the world within a week. I want to fuck her sister, right? I mean, is that on tape? I'm sorry. But it's true. That's the way men are. If there was a girl here, I would say the same thing. But it's true. I have an insatiable spirit. No matter what I have, the shine wears off it right away. So he's going to go through that in this part of the book, and we're going to look at it. So these are the important questions. Do I believe that alcoholism is a problem of mental control? If it's mental control, I can think my way out of it. You see what I'm saying? If it's mental control, then I can learn. But it's not. It's something that I have to apply to my life. I have to apply the solution in a continuous, progressive way, if that makes sense. So, was I always going on the wagon for keeps? For the crackheads, that means breaking the pipe on Sunday night. Right? Did I break the pipe? See, Monday morning, I'm like, dude, are you going to push that? See? Right? Monday morning, I'm still in the hotel. I'm still in there. Everyone else went to work. I'm in the hotel, right? No? You too? Right. Tuesday. I'm still there. I'm still there.
Same clothes for 8 days.
Right. Did you ever break the pipe Sunday night, Stacy?
Every night.
Oh, so you went on the wagon. Because it says, was Stacy always going on the wagon for keeps?
Yes.
Right there. Okay. Do I believe that this differentiates me and sets me apart from other people? It does. There are people that we smoked with. I know guys that get a half a gram on Saturday to go golfing every weekend. They've been doing it for 20 years.
That's not us.
They give it to their buddies. They give it to the bus boys when they leave the golf course.
Oh.
There's people like that.
No, they do. I know.
There are people like that. I'm not one of them. I'm just saying.
Weekend warriors, right?
Okay, so these are the questions coming out of it. So now we're going to go through the doctor's opinion, and we're going to see, based on these ideas, okay? The doctor writes, the subject presented to me in this book seems to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. There's the word addiction. Are we all afflicted with alcoholic addiction? Absolutely. Okay, I say this after many years' experience as a medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcohol and drug addiction. So drug addiction was just as prevalent then, Stacy.
Boom.
Morphine addiction was just as prevalent. They were putting cocaine in Coca-Cola
Killed
bottles.
my granddad.
Okay, so just so you guys know that it was there then. You have as much right to be in the program as anybody else. You just need to be cautious about the way you express it. That's all. Just be cautious. You're more bona fide to be here than anybody. I've seen you, I know. You stuck on stupid immediately. I know. Okay, so there was therefore a real sense of satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in masterly detail in its pages, okay? Now, even back then, this guy's very educated. In fact, if you really talk to the people from the 40s and 50s, they were more educated than most people today because they didn't have TV, they didn't have this phone, which is actually a handicap. Really, they knew how to read a map back then. They don't know how to read a map anymore. They knew how to go through a phone book. They knew how to balance their checkbook. Everything's done for us. If you really think this thing hasn't handicapped us, trust me, okay? These guys were in many ways more educated. They used to do things like recite poetry. They did all kinds of amazing things back then that we don't do anymore. So when this guy says that this subject was covered in masterly detail, I believe him, okay? We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. Now listen what he's saying about science. He says, what with our ultra-modern standards, this is the therapeutic community at the time, our scientific approach to everything, okay? This is what we call empirical evidence. He says, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the knowledges of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. So he's baffled by why this works the way it does. But somehow when two or more are gathered for the purpose of recovery, there seems to be this power. The evidence is all over us. God is like the wind. You can't see it, but you see the evidence of when we come together for the purpose of recovery. Alcoholics Anonymous has really... it's become victorious over alcoholism. We see it. You can't deny that. Go to a world convention and watch the people with 30, 40, 50 years stand up. And you know what you'll say? Oh, they weren't as bad as me. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Oh, he probably fell off a bar stool. He's just a joiner. That's what my head tells me. And then I hear their story. You know, I hear their story about climbing out of a box on Skid Row. I found out how they gave up their family, gave up their career just for one more drink. And I thought, wow, maybe he was like me. And that's what we're hoping to ask as we go through Bill's story. Okay? Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care at this hospital, and while here acquired some ideas which he put into practical application. So it's an idea that I apply.
And he did it at once.
Yeah, right. And you're gonna, I got another thing here that you guys might want to copy later. It gives you all the players in the book. It'll tell you who each of these people were. It's important. You may or may not care. It doesn't necessarily matter. You can go as deep as you want with this. But just sharing this with a new guy, reading this section to a new guy, I guarantee you'll have a new experience with it. Just give it a try. Okay, so it said, later he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving, which means you want to do what? Right? With some misgiving. In other words, the doctor wasn't willing to let a former patient walk into his hospital and start talking to these patients. But Bill Wilson, being a salesman, convinced him, okay, fine, go ahead. And it's interesting what happened, right? We consented, it says. The cases we have followed have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are
Amazing.
We say amazing for like waterfalls, mountains. You know what I mean? That's amazing. He was amazed for what he saw. Okay? The unselfishness of these men as we have come to know them. The entire absence of profit motive. That's why, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I don't believe that for a real alcoholic, working in recovery is always the best thing. For a codependent, it's great. You know what? Codependents and Alcohol, they want to save everybody, right? Now they found a way to save everybody and get paid for it. So what they do is they pretend like they're an alcoholic. Oh, I'm an alcoholic. I drank too. Do you have a credit card? And it's like, no, it's like a cartoon, like one alcoholic shaking out the pockets of another one. Like I believe in the therapeutic community. Bill Wilson went through treatment, but I believe in it just to get somebody physically sober. I don't believe that the therapeutic community in and of itself can actually produce better results in AA once they've got them physically sober. If they can get you physically sober, they can get you over the DTs, they can get you over the withdrawals, God bless them. It's amazing what they do. I totally believe in the scientific part, but I don't believe that warehousing someone for 5 years, you know what I mean, is of really any help at all.
Getting their paycheck every week.
Well, what do you think the definition of codependency is? Doing something for someone else that they should be doing for themselves. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the role at some point of the therapeutic community? Okay. And their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in the alcoholic field. Now he's talking about himself. I have labored. He's saying he has labored. And he says that they believe in themselves and more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Notice he capitalized P. So, if God freaks you out,
Alcohol scares
just
you.
be open to it. Just be open to the idea that there could be something at work here. You don't have to believe in a anthropomorphic God at this point. Just let the power of the group, the power of this movement, and what we call the love that we see in the rooms, the kindness that we want to help you. We want to see you do better. That's all we want. If you can't believe in that one little thing, come on, you see it all around here. There's a lot of that if you're just open to it. Okay, let it be that, which pulls alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, the alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving. This is where he endorses his own industry. And this often requires a definite hospital procedure, of course, okay? Before psychological methods can be of maximum benefit. We believe, as so suggested a few years ago, the action of alcohol or meth or crack or opiates, okay, on these chronic addicts or alcoholics is the manifestation of an allergy. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to that class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. With opium, the phenomenon of craving occurs upon withdrawal. With meth, with cocaine, and alcohol, it occurs upon ingestion. But the phenomenon of craving is the same. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These allergic types, like me, Stacy, Todd, I'm an allergic type, can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. That means what I've seen in my experience, and you guys may have noticed this, once an addict or an alcoholic has lost control in one area, we've lost control in all areas. Now, that's not true for everybody, okay? Now, it may not be true for you, but for me, once I lost control with alcohol, I lost control with meth, with crack, I can't even smoke weed, and if I do, I have no respect for recovery anyway. It's like being a whore in church. I don't feel right about my recovery. So it's like, you can play musical poisons in the first half of step one, but it's like switching seats on the Titanic, if you've heard that expression. It doesn't seem to solve the problem. This problem is a deeper spiritual malady. That's why we talk about causes and conditions. You can treat the symptom, and we say that the drinking is but a symptom, if you've heard that before. So it says, once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, did I form the habit? Did I find I could not break it? Did I lose my self-confidence, my reliance upon things human? Did my problems pile up on me and become astonishingly difficult to solve? Those are all questions. Every one of those are questions that you can talk to with a new guy. Every one of those. You don't know what to talk about? Turn the statements into questions, direct them at the guy you're working with. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. That means, why did you do it again? Why can't you just stop? Why are you always hungover in class? Why don't you ever show up on Mondays? If you don't stop, I'm going to fire you. I'm going to leave you. We're going to get a divorce. That's frothy emotional appeal. The message which can interest and hold people like us must have depth and weight. In clearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. It's pretty simple. Pretty simple statement, right? If any feel that as a psychiatrist directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental. He's talking about himself again. Remember, this is the doctor, and this is his opinion. Okay? This was originally page 1 of the big book. It was moved into the forward because he wasn't an alcoholic. Bill's story became page 1. But originally, if you look at that yellow book, this is the first page. Okay? He says, let them stand with us on the firing line. Let them see the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let solving of these problems become part of their daily work and even their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder why we've accepted and encouraged this movement. So this guy's telling you that's what his career was. Up until that time, it was dismal. That most people did not recover. Alcoholism is fatal. It is progressive. It is chronic, which means it never goes away. It continues to get worse, and eventually it kills us. So that's what it was. If you think about what our lives would be like if it wasn't for AA, people like us. My mom's brother committed suicide drunk. My father's brother committed suicide drunk. I come from a long line of it. So it's like, what were my options? You know what I mean? And the way that this came together with Bill and Bob and these people from the Oxford group, like Buckman and Shoemaker, and that Firestone kid, all of those components, had any of those been different, this might have been different. They say if it was up to Bill, it would have been multi-level marketing. If it was up to Dr. Bob, it would have never got out of Akron, Ohio. You know what I mean? But the way these two personalities met and kind of endorsed and kind of complemented each other, we have what we have today. You guys want to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, sure.
Does anybody have any questions? And then we'll just jam through this. We got.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
The contribute, the three you said that go to service, unity, and recovery.
Contribute, belong, and learn.
Okay, contribute for service.
Yes, of course.
So belong,
Service,
unity.
absolutely.
Would you call the nudge from the judge frothy emotional appeal?
By the judicial system,
Judicial
maybe.
system.
Drink
So-
spree.
Drink craving spree, emerging remorseful, swearing off forever, repeating the cycle.
I've seen in your book part of that.
Stacy, what's up, man?
And then the four tenets.
I think
The
so.
tenet,
Yeah.
the
263.
Okay.
Page 263.
Surrender, catharsis,
Those are like
restitution,
fucking book
service,
guys, I
those
can
ones.
tell, man. You got
This
that.
guy's going to have it all on recording. Did you pause it?
Yeah, no, I didn't pause it, but I should.
Adam, I have this in
Oh,
my book.
this-
It says, first doctor to recognize alcohol as a disease.
Yeah.
Dedicated to his profession, Dr.
So we feel after years of experience, we found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now are growing up amongst them. So the word altruism, as you know, means absence of profit motive. That's what it means. Okay? So this is where he starts on the cycle of addiction. Stacy drinks because he likes the effect produced by crack. The sensation is so elusive that while he knows it's injurious, Stacy cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. That's the way you're going to read it to a new guy. Bart,
I got it.
Height.
read it to him like that. To them, their alcoholic life or addicted life seems the only normal one. Now, look at restless, irritable, and discontent. The acronym is RID of, R-I-D. You're going to see him use the word RID of later. But if you really look at those two, the restlessness, we have a new word for it now. It's called ADD, right? But what it really is an undisciplined spirit. Now, I'll tell you, if you knew that there was $1 million under my fucking bed in cash, I don't care how spiritual you are, you could not stop thinking about it, right? Now, that's not ADD. The ADD people, we have a selective interest disorder. That's different, okay? You hear what I'm saying? If you want something, if I had a pound of meth in my fucking trunk, and I'm going on vacation for the weekend, okay? Right? See? You'd be obsessed.
Meth is
Yeah.
cheaper. Meth
So
is
we don't
cheaper.
really have ADD. Everyone will tell you you got it, but Todd, when you really want something, bro, right? You know what I mean? When you know there's a big pile of fish out there, I mean a shitload,
Ravenous dog.
would you forget?
No.
Fuck no. You'd be like preparing, you'd be, right?
Sure.
Stacy, come on. ADD, please. When it's about money, dude. So we don't have it. You have selective interest disorder. You're only interested in what you think can benefit you. That's what it is. And you don't care about anything else. So when we talk about it, we're restless. We're irritable. It means we hold on. We keep score. We like attached to stuff. We have a quickness to anger.
Obsessed on things.
We're easily annoyed. Okay? So it's talking about that. I have to ask myself what that means. Unless I can again experience the sense of comfort and ease which comes by taking a few drinks. Drinks which I see other people take with impunity, which is kind of the same thing,
No
but which means without consequence. That's what it means. After they have succumbed to the idea, as so many do, right? This is Confucius. Man takes a drink takes a drink takes the man. Have you ever heard that before? So man takes a hit takes a hit takes the man. That's why when you get all sucked up, it means the pipe's sucking off you. Right?
Nice.
So there it is. Confucius wasn't that far off. I mean, so man takes a hit is the obsession. Hit takes a hit is the allergy. You see what I'm saying? That's the allergy. Doesn't happen to everybody. After they have succumbed to the idea, again, after Adam has succumbed to the idea, as so many do, the phenomenon of craving develops, right? I'm at the liquor store at 5:59 a.m., slamming on that door, right? I'm at the crack house at 3 a.m., trying to steal money out of my mom's purse, right? The phenomenon of craving develops. I pass through the well-known stages of a spree, right? I'm stuck on stupid in a hotel room, right? emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to do it again. And then what happens? I stop and I get restless, I get irritable, I get discontent because I'm just sitting in the rooms and I'm not doing the work. I'm not writing inventory. I'm not asking God to remove it. I'm not being of service to really distract myself from these problems. The word in Spanish for fun is divertir. So a lot of this is to divert me. Maybe it works though. It works. This is repeated over and over, and unless Stacy or Todd can experience an entire psychic change, right, there is very little hope of his recovery. That's like slamming the door. What does that mean? It means that unless you can have an entire psychic change, if we can't produce that psychic change through this process, we have nothing. Because what did he just say? Unless you can have this is like an if-then statement in mathematics. If you can't do this, you don't get the result, period. Big statement there. That is a huge statement right there.
It's scary.
It's scary. But you just tapped in. You won the lotto. Not by meeting me, but by getting involved in recovery and hopefully having enough motivation to go through this process.
Yeah.
I promise you. You have my word. We wouldn't lie about this stuff. There's too many of us that have recovered from it. Have recovered. Not recovering.
Yep.
Recovered from a hopeless state of mind. It doesn't mean we ever recovered the ability to have one drink. But if we do this work, we're recovered from the resentment. We recover from the fear. We start to have an operating system that really is superimposed over our operating system. That's why the word program is a sequential set of instructions that brings about a result. It's almost like neuroprogramming. It will bring about a change. All this really is about is spiritual alignment. And once you become spiritually aligned, that's why they use the word precisely, you get free of a lot of the stuff that drives you back. Very simple. On the other hand, okay, as strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, what does he say? Once a psychic change has occurred in Todd, the very same person who seemed doomed, that crack-smoking animal from the hood, who's had so many problems he despaired ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. That's huge. That's why those two beers are sitting up there, next to the circle and the triangle. They don't talk to me. You know what talks to me? The ice cream. The ice cream talks to me. The beers don't talk to me. They don't say, come on, dude, no one's going to know. The ice cream's like, come on, just have a bite, go back to bed. You know, I do that every day for a month. I'm like 250 pounds. The only effort necessary being to require a few simple rules. They say there's no rules in AA. I just gave them to you. There they are. Contribute, belong, and learn. There they are. If you don't do these things, just like chop wood, carry water, you will perish. You may not perish today, you may not perish next week, but spiritually you will perish if you don't sit in the center of that triangle. Or you'll just be miserable. Some people can stay miserable in AA for decades. Do you want to be miserable?
No.
Hell no. I don't want to be miserable. I want to be free. Okay, so men have cried out in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Didn't we all say that? I must stop, I cannot? Mm-hmm. See, this is the bottom for everybody. The bottom for everybody is the same. It's when I ask for help and when I'm willing to receive it. A lot of people ask for help, but then they're not willing to receive it. Like I throw you a life raft and you say, I was looking for a blue one. I don't like the way you threw it. See, you're asking for help, right? But you're not willing to receive it. You see how those two things have to be there?
Yeah.
So from Yale to jail, Park Avenue to Park Bench, it doesn't matter the outside circumstances. There's guys that do get sober with $100 million. My first sponsor, John Frankenheimer, he goes, I had $250 million when I got sober. He goes, you'll never be as rich and famous as me. Go thank the speaker. Because I was too arrogant to thank the speaker. And he said that these are the things we do to stay sober. We always thank the speaker. We always come to meetings early. We try to be helpful. We congratulate the chip people. There's a lot of stuff that's not in the book that we'll have to take a little session to talk about. Because those things also are what we call AA etiquette. You can do it or not, but if you do it, it'll certainly distract you from feeling like you don't fit in or you're lonely or you don't belong. You start having purpose. You come to a party early, you feel like it's your party. You come to a party late, you feel like an outsider, right? So why not show up at meetings just a little early? Get to know people. You always feel connected if you do that. Come a little early. Get to know the people there. Makes a big difference. Okay, faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that's in him, it is not enough. One feels that something more than human power. So he sees, again, referring back to synthetic knowledge, is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Essential. It means that it's necessary. The psychic change is necessary. Now think about this. Ideas, attitudes, and emotions that are once the guiding force are suddenly cast to one side. You think that's going to happen from sitting in a meeting? It can't. It can't. It has to be through the spiritual house cleaning. It has to be through inventory. It has to be from getting the resentments and the fears and the self-centeredness down on paper and being rid of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Though the aggregate, which means collective of recoveries resulting from psychic effort, is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression on the problem as a whole. Now, they won't admit that today. You know why? There's too much money involved. There's way too much money. It's a $35 billion industry. It's up there with annuities in the Wall Street Journal. Why would they admit the truth? That 2.5 million people went into treatment last year, less than 50,000 stayed sober. That's the SAMHSA results from the federal website. Wow. And there it is, right there in the book. You think the book's not prophetic? Less than 1%. And they'll tell you that AA has no evidence-based results. Come to our World Convention. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. I do not hold with those who believe alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. Remember the questions? Remember the questions we asked in the beginning? It's not mental control. If it is, you can think your way out of this. You can learn a way to recover. But we say keep coming back. It works if you work it, not if you know it. The knowledge is necessary because it'll give you the ability to reach in your community and win the confidence of a new guy. And that will really enlighten you. Because
He says, I do not hold, I do not agree with.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I've had many men who have had, for example, worked for months on some problem or business deal, which was to be settled on a certain date favorable to them. In other words, just like Bill Wilson, when in Bill's story, he says he got a bunch of buyers together to buy this big stock, and he didn't have any money, and he was going to be a partner of the shares. And he got drunk the night before he signed the papers. What a dick. What a dick. He'd it's a broker. It's like you walking into a supermarket and selling everybody that's renting in the shopping center on the idea of buying the property. And you're not even buying. And then all of a sudden, when it's time to sign it and you become an owner of a shopping center, you show up loaded. I know brokers that can walk into a shopping center and get everyone that's renting to buy and make a deal overnight. That's how good they are. And this guy shows up drunk. And that's what he's saying here. They took a drink the day or so prior to the date. Then the phenomenon of craving became paramount, right? They took a hit on their way to pick up the supermodel. Couldn't get out of the hotel room. Right? Isn't that never happened?
When everything calls for us.
I don't know about supermodel, but
Okay.
Something like that.
He's stuck on stupid at the Mustang Hotel on Crenshaw.
It's all Western, by the way. Not
Yeah,
Crenshaw.
okay. To all other interests, so that the important appointment was not met. These men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. There it is. Okay? There are many situations that arise out of the phenomenon of craving which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice. That means kill yourself. How many people kill ourselves? We give up on ourselves. We've let everybody down one more time. We can't face walking into another meeting and hearing people say, what are you going to do different this time? Right? It's like embarrassing. I mean, that's what people tell me, man. It's like, can you imagine having to go through that again? That alone is enough to keep me going to meetings. I don't want to go through that again. I know, Todd, you're going through it. I love you, but you know what I mean?
Those people don't know anything about the program, though.
That's true. That's true. The classification of alcoholic that seems most difficult in much detail is outside the scope of this book. There are, of course, the psychopaths who are emotionally unstable. I'm that at some times. We are all familiar with this type. He's always going on the wagon for keeps, right? That's breaking the pipe Sunday night. There it is again. They are over-remorseful, making many resolutions but never a decision. That means I swear I'm going to stop this time, but I never make a decision to completely give myself to AA. I never make a decision to completely take these very simple actions. I say I'm going to stop, but then I don't follow through. How many times have we all done that? Right?
Reservation list.
Yeah. There is the type of man who is unwilling to admit he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. You know what that's like, right? The ATM machine, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Why don't you just buy an ounce, dude? Why don't you just buy the whole case of whiskey and bring it home? Instead of like going to the liquor store at $1.39, right?
Yeah.
So we plan. So it's like I won't buy a carton of cigarettes because I'm going to quit tomorrow. Please, right? And smoke for 20 years. He changes his brand or his environment, right? That's like methadone to heroin, scotch to brandy. This is all a foreshadowing of chapter 3. If you look at it, when we read through the book, you're going to see everything that's in the doctor's opinion laid out. In chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. There is the type who always believes after being entirely free from alcohol or crack or meth or heroin for a period of time he can take a drink without danger. Have I felt that? That's another question you're going to ask a new guy, right? Maybe you could just get high tonight and come back tomorrow. You know, that idea. There is the manic depressive type who is perhaps least understood by his friends, about whom a whole chapter could be written. Now, Bill Wilson saw that. In the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Manual on Mental Illness, you have like Axis 1 and 2, grave emotional and mental disorders. Wilson saw all that coming. He knew that all that would come to AA. Because alcohol is a great short-term antidepressant. You have a couple drinks, you want to go do stuff, right? It like works immediately. So a lot of people use it medicinally. Here's a really important section, okay? There's two types of people you're going to read in chapter 3. People that are bodily and mentally different. Some people are bodily different. In other words, they can't stop once they start, but they don't have the spiritual malady. They come to AA, they don't drink no matter what, they just crave the fellowship, but they don't have deep-seated resentment. They don't live in fear. They kind of stop drinking, they never work a step, they come to meetings once a year, take a cake, and their life gets better. Then you got the type that's mentally different. He comes from Al-Anon, overeaters, gamblers, sex addicts. They crave Alcoholics Anonymous because we have a solution, right? But they don't have the physical allergy. A lot of drug addicts are like that. They don't have the allergy to alcohol, but they have the spiritual malady, so they gravitate. But then there's the type that's bodily and mentally different. This type here is just bodily different. Listen, there's types that are normal in every respect except the effect produced by alcohol. He's bodily different, right? Once he starts, he can't stop. He can ruin a marriage or career, his whole life in one night. Because once he starts, he can't stop, okay? But he's an often intelligent, friendly people. You see? He's bodily different. But that guy's in AA, and we have to respect him. The problem is, will he respect us? He's the guy that calls us step Nazis, book thumpers. He likes to throw that shit out there.
No matter what.
Yeah, he's a no matter what type. He's an elite group. So when we, you start talking to that guy about the book, he like bristles with antagonism. He doesn't like all this technical stuff. The problem is, and you may be that, you may have to decide for yourself. See, the real problem with an alcoholic is when the type that the book was written for stops, the outsides get better, but the insides get worse. If your insides don't get worse when you're not drinking, you might not have to do this work. That's the big question. Because if alcohol's the problem, guess what the solution is? Abstinence. If alcohol's the problem, the solution is abstinence. But if it's a deeper spiritual maladjustment, then the solution is a spiritual experience. Does that make sense at all? Mm-hmm. Real simple, right?
Yeah.
It's a simple way to talk about it. Okay. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot drink without developing the phenomenon of craving. That's what ties us all together. And you got to remember, that guy that's just bodily different, he can kill himself in one night. We still need to love him and accept him and embrace him in Alcoholics Anonymous. But you have to be very cautious that if he gives a guy like me direction, it'll kill me. Don't drink no matter what and go to meetings and your life will get better. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for a guy like me, and I know that now. I didn't know that for my first 10 or 15 years in AA. I didn't know that. But I don't want to be divisive with that guy. I don't need to hit him over the head with the book. Right? I want to make him feel as welcome as anyone, but I need to know who my people are. In other words, who people like me are. Does that kind of make a little bit more clear? Okay, this phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates people like me and Stacy and Todd and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. Okay? They say AA is not about not drinking. County jail's about not drinking. AA is about learning to live sober. So if you think this is about not drinking, that part is about not picking up that first drink. You know what I mean? And that I've only been able to do by doing this work. So not drinking is basically a byproduct of spiritual fitness, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
This is immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron of debate. Much has been written pro and con, but among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most alcoholics are doomed. That's pretty bad, doomed. Okay? Bad, really bad.
Bad.
And here's and then it says, okay, so he hits us there. Remember, with warnings and promises, you've heard a lot of them today, okay? What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. About a year ago, prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He had partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage, and this was Hank Parkhurst, I believe. He had been partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage and seemed to be a case of pathological mental deterioration. He had lost everything worthwhile in life and was only living, one might say, to drink. He frankly admitted that he believed for him there was no hope. Following the elimination of alcohol, okay, that's being physically sober, there was found to be no permanent brain injury. He accepted the plan outlined in this book, okay? The plan outlined in this book. That's what the book is. It's a plan, recovery plan. 1 year later, he called me. I experienced a very strange sensation. I knew the man by name, partly recognized his features, but there all resemblance ended. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck, okay, which I've seen in a lot of you guys. I've seen it in you. I've seen it in myself. That's what I was when I came into AA. Okay. I was on the scrap heap of life. Had emerged a man brimming over with self-confidence and contentment. I talked to him for some time, but I was not able to bring myself to feel that I had known him before. To me, he was a stranger, and so he left. A long time has passed with no return to alcohol. When I need a mental uplift, I think of another case brought to me by a physician, prominent physician in New York. The patient had made his own diagnosis, decided his situation was hopeless. He had hidden in a deserted barn determined to die. I could see myself doing that. He was rescued by a search party and in desperate condition brought to me. Following his physical rehabilitation, he had a talk with me in which he frankly said he thought treatment a waste of time. A lot of us come in like that. Remember that if you're really jaded, that's why we do the set-aside prayer. God, help me set aside everything I think I know. Remember something. If you're working with new guys and they're sitting in a hot tub with a supermodel with an 8-ball and a fifth of whiskey and their dad sends them to rehab, do you expect them to be ready? But why would you shame a guy like that? You know what I mean? He's just like further down the same path. You know, if that dude's got what we got, he's going to end up where we are. Okay? The supermodel turns into a toothless, homeless girl. It's like it all just like, right? I mean, it all just like deteriorates.
I actually saw that happen to a guy. He started in Malibu with fucking hot chicks, beautiful smoking crack. Like 3 to 4 years later, he's in a little trailer in fucking ghost town with fucking.
I know.
I mean, literally, he literally went from.
I know.
You know, and he's trying to go after the same.
We all did that. That's our story.
I know. I don't know about me, but go ahead.
Oh, please. It also has to do with age. But following his physical rehabilitation, he had a talk with me, which frankly he stated treatment he thought was a waste of time, unless I could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he would have the willpower. We keep thinking it's willpower. It is not. The only thing willpower will help you with is working a program. When people say don't drink no matter what, think, work the steps no matter what, maintain commitments no matter what, be of service no matter what, and you will get the grace not to drink. Live in the center of this triangle. Okay, unity is going to meetings, service is commitments, recovery is to work through the step process. You see, that's all available in the program. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. His alcoholic problem was so complex, his depression so great, we felt that the only hope was through what we then called moral psychology, and we doubted if that would even have any effect. And then the last paragraph. However, he did become sold on the ideas contained in this book. Am I sold on the ideas contained in this book? That's going to be the big question. He has not taken a drink for a great many years. I see him now and then. That guy's name was Fitz Mayo, by the way. He is such a fine specimen of manhood as I could wish to meet. I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book, though perhaps he came to scoff, he may remain to pray. So that's we're done with that section. If you guys, you know what I mean, want to go through it again, eventually I hope that you'll read that with someone else and do it kind of similarly. You can knock this out in an hour. with a new guy if you read fast and you ask him the questions. I've met guys outside the Marina Center and do it. The only reason I like to do a group like this, because otherwise you got one guy in the doctor's opinion, one guy in Bill's story, two guys writing inventory. Yeah, read him the doctor's opinion, see what happens. You'll learn more and more every time you go through this. When I went to my 28 treatment center, the guy that was running the detox said, why don't you come back to detox next week and tell everybody in the detox how you stayed sober a whole week? And for the next 8 years, I sat in bumper to bumper traffic to tell these people in detox how I made it another week, and I was tricked into service. But when I really understood the doctor's opinion, that's the same thing that Bill did.
Yeah.
Bill went back to his treatment center and started talking to guys in treatment.
His wife said, "You can't." He said, "I can't get anybody sober."
Yeah, she said you've been, yeah. And she said you've been sober. Wonderful. Any questions as we finish this?
So one of those books